Hey, everybody. I'm Lisa Campion, and this is the Miracle of Healing. So glad that you're here with us today. And I'm very excited about today's guest. One's really special for me. Valerie Lundgren is one of my own students, and she has graduated and come into her own, and I've watched her blossom into the most extraordinary healer. And honestly, that just makes me so happy to see my students go out into the world and do their work in this incredible, beautiful way. Um, Val is a certified holistic health coach, quantum energy healer, hypnotherapist, nervous system specialist. And what I love about her approach is how she weaves together science and spirit, somatics, energy work, subconscious healing into this really, really integrated path for transformation. She works with empaths, light workers, women moving through spiritual awakening, helping them to release anxiety, heal trauma, and come back home to themselves. And she's a contributing author in the new anthology, Mindful Her, a journey of healing, hope, and empowerment, where she shares her own raw and powerful story about healing through nervous system regulation and soul remembrance. Val, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lisa. I wouldn't be here without you.
Ah, that's so sweet. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. I always like to start with, sharing a little bit about your story and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah. So my story really kind of began in the womb, but we won't go back that far. Instead, I'll just kind of give you a brief summary that I had, after the birth of my son, developed really horrible panic and anxiety, and was kind of doing everything I thought I could at the time, the tools that I had, but they really weren't doing much. And so I just kind of lived with the anxiety for about 13 years. And then it came to a head and I developed cancer. And that's where I was like, okay, full stop. I need to figure this out. And I need to get my life in order. So that was kind of that spiritual awakening moment. So that's where I hit my rock bottom, was really, really struggling, and kind of had that dark night of the soul situation, and then had this awakening and this epiphany. And through that, it was learning how to come back home to my body, trusting my body, learning nervous system regulation, learning how to love myself again, and doing a lot of deeper work along the way. And so then it brought me into holistic health coaching, which then brought me into energy healing, which brought me into Lisa and doing more integrative work, because I was like, there's so much more I need to do. And so then I did your apprenticeship program, which was life-changing. And then after that, I got certified through hypnotherapy and somatic anxiety coaching to do nervous system healing. So that's kind of this brief summary of why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I didn't have the tools 20 years ago that I have today. We didn't talk about anxiety the way we do today 20 years ago. And I just want to help women so they don't have to sit and struggle the way I did for 13 plus years and feel like I was on this life raft by myself. And so that is my purpose, is to just help women navigate this journey. And through it all, we understand that there's the layers upon layers of things that we need to heal so that we can fully come back embodied and come back to ourselves. And I want to give women that power, just like you do, how you build your army of healers. And I want to build my army of empowered and embodied women so that they can take the learnings and they can continue doing their healing and their soul growth in this lifetime. So
Such a beautiful mission. It's amazing. I was just struck by something you said about anxiety, and that we didn't talk about it, very much, and the conversation's changed about it now. And I think that'd be a good place to start, because it's so common. So many people struggle with anxiety. Feels like people's anxiety is getting worse. More people have it. And what do you think it really is? Like, when we get right down to it, what is anxiety and how do we treat it?
yeah, that's a good question. I think anxiety in general, of why I think it's gotten worse. I don't know if it's gotten worse. I think we've just finally put a name to it, if that makes sense,
Mm.
or standing to it. And it very well could be worse just because of where society is now with social media and not as much social interaction and connection. And so I think we could talk about all of that too, the science behind technology and how it's shifted our bodies. But anxiety isn't like the enemy either. I was actually just having a moment this morning in my meditation, and I was thinking about this, and I was like, so many people want this quick fix. Anxiety has to leave my body. It's a bad thing. Let's get rid of it. And I want it gone today. But anxiety is there to signal to us to say something's not right. And so I feel like we need to embrace anxiety and start loving anxiety a little bit more than the anxiety is bad. And I know it's really hard for people to hear that because they go, yeah, but I don't want to feel anxious. I don't like feeling the panic. And I totally get it because I was there. But when we start befriending the emotion and start understanding the emotion, then we can have a little bit more control of what's happening with our body. And the emotion starts quieting down a little bit, and it doesn't take up as much space as it did before. So it's a learning that we have when we come home to the anxiety. So anxiety in general, I guess to answer your question, is just that our nervous system, our body, is reacting to situations that will put us into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it gets us going and it makes us feel on edge. And the reason why we have this anxiety is to keep us safe, right? So anxiety is just there to keep us safe. However, in our modern day era, it's keeping us safe from driving in traffic and being angry at somebody, and it's making us anxious, or getting overstimulated from the dog barking. My dog just barked. Just like thinking of things where like anxiety starts peeking in, where it's not really keeping you safe necessarily, but it's always on a constant. And that builds up through time. So generally it builds up through your lifetime of trauma, things that have happened since you were little. The nervous system's never really adjusted, so it's just always on guard. It builds up through, again, our society and what's happening in our society, and it makes us feel we have to be on edge and protect ourselves. So anxiety has a place, but we can also work with it so it doesn't take over the nervous system and the whole body.
Yeah, that's so great, all of that. I love that. And I think it's very different from like, well, it's this feeling that it's an emotion that you shouldn't be having. And so here's a pill we're gonna give
Yeah,
you, Xanax or an Ativan or something, so you quit having that emotion. And what you just said is so different, that it's more of a body. I mean, we do feel it as an emotion, but it's sort of arises out of our body, out of our adrenal glands and our nervous system and our vagus nerve.
yeah,
And so treating it through the body seems like maybe a better approach than just popping a pill that's going to kind of mask the symptoms, right?
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I was never, I never took medication because I was so afraid of what it would do for me. I also stopped like alcohol and drugs and all of that over 20 years ago before I had panic and anxiety. So I just didn't want to do any of those things. So I've managed all of my anxiety without medications. However, I will say I understand if somebody has to take a medication to kind of get through at
Yeah.
points, at certain times. But if you are going to take a medication, make sure that you are still doing the work and checking in and
Mhm.
figuring out, why is the anxiety yelling at you? Why is your body telling you there's something wrong? And that's where this embodiment comes from, is we have to start integrating and understanding what's actually happening. Why is anxiety yelling at me today? And what do I need to know about it?
Yeah, we absolutely don't want people to come off their meds. If you need to
No,
take psychiatric
can't.
medication, please take it.
Talk to your doctor.
And thank God we have it, because when you need
Right.
it, you really need it, and thank God we
Right.
have it. So, yeah, that's not really what I was implying, but I
No.
love sort of this shift from, you're from this thinking about it as something you're pushing away into
Yeah.
something that it's informing you about something that needs attending to in your own system, right? In your own beingness. So, let's talk about the nervous system. And you said before we got rolling today that there's certainly like a lot of talk about the nervous system, maybe a little hype about the nervous system. Well, in a way, thank God, because it's really also time that we understand that what's happening with our nervous system. But I know that's kind of your specialty and or one of your many specialties. So let's talk about what happens in our nervous system and maybe what we can do to calm the nervous system so we can feel more at peace.
Yeah. So there's lots of layers to it as far as when it comes into understanding and healing and working with the nervous system. I love vagal work. We worked on that within our apprentice program too. Lisa was able to show us some vagal exercises to do. And learning and understanding the vagus nerve, so it connects from the back of our head all the way down to the base of our spine. And that vagus nerve runs and operates the nervous system, and it connects everything together. So it connects into all of your organs and connects into the fascia. I mean, just everything. And it's so important for us to understand this vagus nerve. If it's all tight and jacked up and not moving, then we're not really getting energy to move properly to then be able to process the emotions or feelings that are coming through either. And so it will shoot off all of the hormones, the cortisol, the adrenals, and, all of the totally just lost it, but the adrenals, the cortisol, and it'll just kind of put us into that fight flight. Or it can also put us into the shutdown, the dorsal vagal state. And so we have to start understanding the different states as well of what's happening in our nervous system. So like if somebody's in the dorsal vagal state and this shutdown, that's usually when you're like depressed and you just really not moving, kind of in that freeze response. I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, now your nervous system is shut down. I want you to go do 20 jumping jacks and, start screaming, because we talk about needing to expel and move the energy out of the body. And that's the somatics of it. When we're in the dorsal shutdown, screaming and moving a bunch really is difficult. And it's really hard to get to that. So it's like almost asking somebody to make a jump up a ladder and they can't get up to the top rung of the ladder. They have to get through the other steps to get there.
Mm.
So we go through the different stages of understanding that, okay, now we want to get into more of a ventral vagal state. So let's get us into, can we start just doing a little bit of self-soothing when we're in that ventral or in that dorsal vagal, right? So like self-soothing might be a good thing to do, or just some rubbing around the vagus, doing some gentle rubbing. That will help maybe stimulate. So you start waking up a little bit more, and then you can go into discharging whatever energy is there as well.
Mm.
So again, same concept. If somebody's really anxious and off the wall and feeling so overwhelmed, I wouldn't tell them go sit in a meditation, because that's not going to do anything, right? You can't just take somebody from this heightened level and say, go sit down and relax. We have to move that energy out of the body. And so there might be a discharge, like moving our arms and shaking the hands. Maybe it's jumping up and down, but any type of movement to discharge that energy, to help understand this energy just needs somewhere to go, will help us understand the nervous system and what it needs from us as well.
So like we literally need to shake it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We literally need to do the Taylor Swift and shake it off. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're feeling anxious, shake it off. Listen to some music and really shake it off. And then you can kind of, as you're doing that, you're feeling anxious and you need to move that energy, then kind of start settling back in and start understanding, hey, body, what's that anxiety for? What's going on? What do we need to know about this? And that's where you can slow down, because asking while you're in the heightened state, what's this anxiety about? It's just going to spiral you, and you're not going to really understand clarity from what the anxiety needs from you at that time. So discharge, then ask.
That's good. So once you bring yourself a little further up the ladder, and you're out of that frozen state, you can sort of reconnect with your thinking mind, And I think that's like, why things like affirmations or telling yourself just to buck up doesn't work, because, you're dealing with a part of your nervous system that's not really connected to your frontal cortex, right?
Right. Everything shuts down, right? So Yeah, totally. It's not going to work at that time. So
Yeah.
we need to move that energy so that we can come back into the body and understand the body.
Well, that's so
Mhm.
cool. And I know that you also, you're a very talented energy worker. So how does energy work and
Mm.
moving our energy play into this?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really interesting thing because I was doing the energy healing before I really got into more of the somatics of it all, and did more deeper nervous system work. But as I was working with somebody and doing energy healing, I could see or feel like the nervous system. I could feel the anxiety that was like coming out of their body, right? It was just this palpable energy that was kind of coming through. And again, now I kind of know more. So if I have a client that's feeling that way, it's like, okay, I want you to do a little movement before we get going. I want you to do some shaking on the bed, or we're going to do a little bit of movement before we get settled. Because I know that they won't be able to relax and enjoy the energy healing session if we're just, okay, we're going to do energy healing. And then they're just like laying there and that's, they can't sit still during the session or get
Mm.
relaxed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I work with somebody and I do energy healing, I can understand and connect more with what's happening within the nervous system and get a better understanding of what we need to work with throughout. And so then we touch base with what energy is there and what emotions are coming up, right? And sometimes that's some of the things that they're not even kind of tuning into is what emotions are underneath. And so then we kind of talk through what emotions might be coming forward as we're working through the nervous system and working through energy healing. And they can start connecting more because they're able to feel a little bit more deeply when they're in that state and connecting with the energy healing.
Some of the best energy work I've ever had done, I like to box, so I
Yeah,
had a boxing trainer, and, I taught her Reiki. She became one of my Reiki students, and she offered me, I would these incredible sessions. Some of the best energy work I've ever experienced was we would do half an hour of boxing in her basement, and then she would take me into the Reiki room and give me a half an hour of Reiki.
I love that.
That was so
So
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. I love that. Yeah, and I should get a punching bag in my office. That'd be a great idea.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yep.
getting that, like understanding that, like moving the energy through as then we go into that relaxed state for healing, it helps actually you as the client too, because now your nervous system is aware, but yet in a calm state to like get into more depth and understanding of what's really happening within the body. So the
Mm.
clients then have a little bit more clarity as we're working through, and they're going to come out of it going, oh, okay. So that's now I'm starting to feel this and this makes sense. And it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
then we start unpacking a little bit from the session because they get more from it, right? When they understand that clarity from the nervous system healing. So
That's great. Let's talk about empaths, trauma, spiritual
mhm.
awakenings,
Yeah,
and, like, well, it's tough to be an empath on the planet right now. Like,
dude, it
yikes.
so is. Yeah. So hard. Yeah, and I see it so much too, and I see it in different like groups and people talking about being an empath right now and how ungrounded they feel, and that's one thing that I've been kind of doing a little bit more research in is actually understanding the nervous system and how it's different for an empath. And the empath might have a little bit of a more sensitive nervous system. There's
Mhm.
again layers to it. We could go into like, the trauma. Generally, empaths experience a little bit more trauma as children, um, or just they're a little more sensitive in different areas. And so our nervous system as empaths generally have a little bit more sensitivity because we as empaths are more sensitive. But the nervous system becomes a little bit more inflamed due to our histamine response as well. And so we have to kind of keep that in mind is that when we as empaths, if we've had any kind of trauma or we just are sensitive people, we might have a little bit more sensitivity to inflammation. And therefore, that's going to cause the nervous system to override itself sometimes. So yeah, so there's a little bit to it, to like understanding that as an empath, you're probably going to be a little bit more sensitive with the nervous system healing.
Mm, that's fascinating. I didn't know there was a connection between um the histamines and inflammation and sensitivity.
Yeah.
What do you think as empaths we can do right now? Like what, how do we hold up during this, sort of crazy time that we're living in?
Probably like move to the woods in a cottage away from everything. Get off social media.
That's what I did. But
Um,
what if we can't do that? Some people can't
if we can't do
swing that.
that, if we have to stay in human society, um, it's really like daily hygiene practice. Just like you would brush your teeth, we need to start our morning with a grounding practice, whatever that may look like for you, and doing some vagal toning every single day. So if you're humming while you're brushing your teeth, that's beautiful. Go sing in the shower. That is a great way to get vagal toning working. So doing things to just, when we can strengthen the nervous system, we build resilience so that we can handle the stressful stuff around us more.
Mhm.
So strengthening is just like when you're going to go weight lift every day. That's the same thing as what you're going to do with vagal toning and nervous system work is
And
we're
vagal
going to work.
toning, do you really mean like actually making a noise or is
Yeah,
it
it can
toning
be
up?
noise. Yeah, it can be noise, but vagal work can also be just like I said, it can just be like massaging your neck. It can be the other one of just like turning your head and looking down, and that's getting the vagus nerve to turn on. There's so many different things and exercises you
Mhm.
could do. One of the things I have is like the vagus nerve deck, and you can use that and just pull a card every day and just make it kind of like a game. But as long as
Mm.
you're doing something every day to work on the vagus nerve, you're
Right.
building up resiliency so that nervous system can handle the stresses that are going to come every day. Um, but definitely grounding, protect, vagus nerve work.
Yeah. I think that it's also probably like going, at some point you sort of have to go back into the past, I think, and clean up the
Oh,
traumas that, have created such a jacked up nervous system too. Like eventually we have to, maybe it's timeline work or parent or child work or past life work or something to sort of find the point of origin for that and clean it up so we don't, we're sort of healing it at the root of
mhm.
what's creating so much feeling of unsafety in our
Yeah.
bodies, right?
Yep, for sure. And I like, again, I'm very much going slow. I don't like to push. And so I'm very much into the camp of you're going to learn nervous system regulation and vagal toning. And then as we feel a little bit safe, then we're going to start integrating more into the unpacking the trauma.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to go in, and not that you're implying this, but I'm just saying from my own experience, I see people go into I'm going to do the trauma work and they haven't really done much nervous system work and then they're
Right.
just fried. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's too much. You
Yeah.
got to you got to build that resiliency so you can hold space for the things that
Yeah.
you're going to be working with.
You got to give yourself a leg to stand on really there,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. And I know you just contributed to a book. Let's hear a little bit about your book.
I did. Yeah, so this was an anthology book of other women who wrote stories about their mental health healing journeys. And so my journey, my book was about my journey again from the womb. And that's where I kind of had discovered through my own spiritual awakening. Um, that's where everything kind of started for me, my anxiety. Well, and then working with you, we also discovered so much in the past lives as well. But
Mm.
a really big part in this lifetime started in the womb for me and how much I carried. And so it just kind of tells my story of how I worked with womb healing as I was in utero, but then working through different childhood and inner child aspects as I'm an adult now to come into full understanding of anxiety itself and why it was there and what I needed to do now as an adult to help heal my inner child and myself at that time. So, and then why I became who I am today and all of that. So, yeah, it's a great little
Amazing.
story, but just a
Cool.
snippet of my life story of how it all began.
Amazing. And if people wanted to work with you, Val, how would they get in touch?
Yeah, they can visit my website, mindfulwellness.me. And they can find me on Facebook. Just Google my name and you'll find me. And just reach out. here for you.
Good. And just as we leave here, is there anything you want to add? Any sort of last minute tip or technique that help us? We're going into the holiday season. Everyone's so stressed out. Like,
We
what can we
are.
lean on?
We are going into the holiday season. Yeah, and I know a lot of people feel so overwhelmed from it. This is really going to sound silly, but I was kind of thinking about this the other night and I was like, oh, I should just do a video of like doing a breath technique. And really your breath is powerful.
Yeah,
So going
breathing
to
is
a
so
breath
good.
technique is breathing so good. So I would just give everybody a quick breathing technique that you could use anytime. And it really helps cut that anxiety, that anxiousness in half. And it's where we breathe in and we do a second breath and then a quick inhale and then we breathe out. So it goes like this. You go in, a sharp one in through your nose and then out. This is one of my favorites to do when I'm feeling anxious. So just breathe in and out. So
So
easy breath,
simple. So
so
simple
simple,
and
and you can just do
so
it anytime.
powerful. Yeah, I love that
Mhm.
one. I like the box breathing too, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Like, that of
Yep,
that in the 4-2-8, in for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 8. Isn't it
definitely.
anytime the exhale is longer than the inhale that it starts that
Correct.
settling the nervous system?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So you wanna make sure when you're doing breathing in for 4, 5, or 6, but your exhale is always gonna be longer than the breath in. And then that
Yeah.
way you're resetting the nervous system. You're telling the vagus nerve, all right, I'm calm, I'm good. And then it calms the body into that relaxed state.
Mm. Well, thank you so much, Val, for being here on the show today and all the beautiful work you're doing in the world. It's been such a pleasure having you here.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. It's been a pleasure being a part of your world too. So thank you.
And thanks all of you guys for tuning in. We're hoping that you're going to take some of this incredible information and really deepen your ability to settle your nervous system because, gosh, it's important. And if
Yeah,
you want to find me, you can find me at lisacampion.com. I work with emerging psychics, healers, and empaths to help them fully step into their gifts because I think the world needs all the healers it can get. And that's what
we
we're
need more.
doing here. Yeah,
Yes.
even more. That's what we're doing here on the Miracle of Healing, where we are saving the planet one person at a time right here on the Empower channel.